It's raining today and I have the day off. I have 3 goals for today. I want to change my tire. I'm switching to a Maxxis T18 6.5 inch. I want to check my conductive standoffs in my controller box, and I want to use my BMS tool to make sure my batteries are balanced. Oh, I also need to clean my board. I let my nephew take it for a spin on Thanksgiving and it got a little dirty. My V1 plastics have held up remarkably well. I'm sure if I ran my board into a signpost they'd shatter, but for sliding over roots and rocks, mine are still in one piece. For the most part, the tire change is pretty straightforward. Remove your motor from the board. Be careful with the motor plug. Remove the axle blocks. Carefully remove the axle blocks. Remove your valve stem, deflate the tire, and then break the bead. I like to use bar clamps to break my bead. You could use a 2x4 or a bead breaker if you have one. There we go. So I've heard horror stories about getting this bead to set, so for my own safety, I got one of these latching direct line attachments for my compressor. The idea being that I don't have to actually be near the tire as I'm inflating it. The first bead set at about 95 psi. The second bead just refused to cooperate. I got the tire up to 140 psi and it still wouldn't set. The solution was a ratchet strap and copious amounts of Windex. The second bead finally set at about 126 psi. After deflating, I used up the last of my stay afloat tire sealant and the motor is good to go. Onto the board. So the first thing I'm going to check are the conductive standoffs in the controller compartment. There are 2 really important circuit boards in the controller box, the ESC and the LCM. They are stacked on top of each other, and there are conductive standoffs between them to provide power to the LCM. Some riders have discovered bad solder joints in the standoffs, causing them to come loose and result in board shutoff. Carefully remove the lid to the controller box and unplug the foot pad connector and the LED connector. I used a marker to mark the LED connectors since the 2 look very similar. Once you get into the controller box, the first thing you want to do is unplug the power to the ESC. It's the red cable here. Then you hit your power button a few times to drain the capacitors. Here's the LCM, and here are the 4 screws you have to remove to get the LCM off. The screws have a washer between the screw head and the LCM and another washer between the LCM and the standoff. The washers that go under the LCM are tiny and obnoxious and very easy to lose. Be extremely careful you don't lose them in your controller box. Loose metal inside the box could cause a short and kill your board. Fortunately, all my standoffs were secure. I managed to get all my washers threaded back on, and I reassembled the controller and moved on to the battery box. I have a BMS tool I purchased from Floatwheel. It has a QR code that you can scan that takes you to the associated BMS app in the App Store. Once you have that installed, go ahead and unplug the black cable in the corner here, remove the tape on the ribbon cable, pop the clip up, and pull it out. Then plug the BMS tool into the black corner cable. The next step is plugging the ribbon cable in. It's honestly kind of sketchy.
Very carefully plug in this ribbon cable. If you misalign it or you come in at an angle, it will damage your battery pack or the battery tool. We have seen a lot of BMS damage due to this misaligned plugging of ribbon cables.
I got a yoga block to prop up the BMS tool so I could more directly slide the cable in. After much deep breathing, I managed to get the cable in and the clip lowered on it. Next, you plug your charger into the BMS tool until it beeps. You connect via Bluetooth on your phone, enter the password, which is float, and boom, there you have it. Per cell voltages. The V2 electronics package will have this functionality built in, but since this is the V1, this is how we've got to do this. Fortunately, my cells are in great shape and they're all within 0.003 volts of each other. This is really excellent news. A single bad cell can cause the BMS to cut power to the board, and now I know my pack should behave normally. It shouldn't give the BMS a reason to dump me. All of this finally gave me the clarity to explain the Floatwheel. It's like the age-old console gaming versus PC gaming debate. Sure, a good PC can provide the best possible gaming experience in terms of frame rate and image quality, but PCs also require you to maintain them, troubleshoot them, and sometimes conduct nerve-wracking repairs. The Floatwheel is a really amazing board, and in its current state, it can be pretty high maintenance. I'm okay with that. If you aren't, maybe wait until the ADV2 comes out. I think the Floatwheel is going to mature into something really amazing in the coming years. It's already a tremendous product, but I hope someday I can recommend it without all these caveats. It's tough. There's a zen to floating, and that is really hard to achieve when you don't feel like you can trust your board. Granted, you can never completely trust any self-balancing device, but eliminating some of the known issues can go a long ways to make the ride a lot more enjoyable. My V2 plastic should arrive soon, as well as a set of Ignite foam grip tapes. Yes, I know, I have no imagination. I'd like to do some waterproofing. I've already added a little silicone around the status lights and the ADC connector, but I need to get the boxes open again and seal them up better. That's for a future video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.